Hello, I'm Dr. Catherine Horton. Today is the 23rd of June, 2017, and it's 20 minutes to 10 a.m. in the morning. I was just far too tired and too exhausted last night to actually go online and issue another SOS help. That's why I'm doing it this morning. Also, I forgot the last two times to make my statement under oath. That was me just being far too stressed and disorganized. But everything I said in the last two videos is true to the best of my knowledge. And today I would like to start by doing the entire statement under oath from the beginning and then continue later. So using the witness affirmation according to the Oath Act 1978, as it is still valid in the UK courts. I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So I think this is important to make all my statements under oath, because this is an ongoing crime. I'm being mutilated as you are watching this. I'm being shot into with electromagnetic weapons. I have been mutilated with, I think, what is nanotechnology and illegal implants. I have put out several appeals to cease and desist to the intelligence agencies who are the agencies doing this. They unify the stalking and harassment networks, the human intelligence networks, the military weapons, and many other things. They've got the ability to hack computers and corrupt all of our public institutions. And all of these desperate pleas were to no avail. So now the last resort is really court cases, and should court cases fail, should we not be able to stop these, what frankly I think are Nazi psychopaths in the courts or through the courts, it means that all of the institutions of civil society are suspended. The police are not investigating these crimes. The intelligence agencies who are tasked with fighting terrorism actively commit terrorism. Doctors who are tasked with helping victims and trying to cure them actively chip them, actively mutilate and murder them. So the courts are the last resort. I have experience of the UK courts. I have witnessed extreme corruption. Nevertheless, I do think that the courts are the way to go at this moment in time, and they are also the last resort. Because should the courts fail, it means that every single institution, public institution that we have, that is a safety mechanism against horrific crimes like that, which is in a nutshell a rerun of the Nazi crimes of the Second World War in exactly the same way. Should the courts fail, then the only way to stop these Nazis is just like last time in a world war. But the last two world wars were staged. This time, depending on how many people are awake and informed, it will be a civil war, and it will be therefore much more unpredictable and much more deadly, even more deadly than the Second World War, because you pit people against each other. So given that that's the prospect, I would say that we try court cases as quickly as possible. We try to save the life of the victims. And should the judges be corrupt, should the courts deny help, or should the courts not have the power to stop the Nazi criminals and the intelligence agencies, a war will kick off. However, I urge everybody not to give in to the official version of the war and realize what it actually is, which is a staged war, asset stripping, and many other financial crimes to be committed and economic crimes to be committed alongside. And actually, instead of succumbing to the official version, realize that our real enemies right now are our own militaries and our own intelligence agencies. They are the real enemies. They are the ones who are organized, tasked, and organizing the Third World War. So again, I think the way to stop them is, should they not stop under the civil mechanisms of the courts, a war-like situation will arise because people are fighting for their life now. But in that case, I think we should have the intelligence agencies and our own military shut down as quickly as possible. So that is the truth. Every country has to shut down their own intelligence agency and their own militaries. that is the most efficient way of doing it. There are mechanisms for that in every civil society. This is not unheard of, having a military, mutiny, a military takeover of the democratic country. There are mechanisms, and we have to use them as quickly as possible. But until then, so in a nutshell, I would say that should the courts fail, we have to shut down the intelligence agencies, and we have to have war crime tribunals as quickly as possible against our own military leaders, and every country should follow suit. And the reason why we shouldn't buy into the official version of the Third World War that is about to be set up, as far as I can tell, is because it will be fake, and we do not have the capacity on planet Earth to survive a Third World War. We barely have the capacity to survive not having a world war, and that's because our ecosystems are collapsing. They are systematically being poisoned and being loaded with nanotechnology that is destroying the DNA, the cell cultures, and is destroying the ecological balance that we have in nature. And this is being done by militant, mostly men, who are entirely psychopathic, therefore mentally ill and not fit to make judgments in any capacity. So that's what's happening. Meanwhile, I'm one of many thousand victims who is being mutilated to death. The intelligence agencies, after their little trials during the Second World War, which were the concentration camps, followed by the Stasi-Zersetzung, that was also a huge experiment, actually, by this Nazi collective, which continued alive and well after the Second World War. The Nazis were not shut down, they expanded. So they are still very well funded. They were very well funded throughout the war. And I think there's a book by Anthony Sutton who wrote about who funded the Nazis. But the funding stream never stopped. As you know, the Nazi criminals have been exported to the US. There they set up MK Ultra and other mind-shattering mutilation programs. They are neurological disintegration programs. And they have been industrialized in the US. The entire communities where large-scale experiments were conducted are still being conducted to this day. And then what happened is that they built it up together with electromagnetic weapons into a global electromagnetic assault system. It's a neurological assault system and a neurological and physical disintegration system. So this is what we're faced by. But thanks to the internet, thanks to network mathematics, we can defeat this because information travels faster than and much more non-linearly than missiles travel or bullets. So this is our chance. So our way to survive is information. But what has happened is that this Nazi collective that has internationalized after the Second World War is now again operating live concentration camps. They moved away from the model of herding people into concentration camps or gulags, for example. Gulags were the Russian version of the Nazi concentration camps. China had them as well. Japan had them all around the world. So we thought that we had shut down these Nazi concentration camp programs, but they have come back. They have gone underground, they've gone silent, and now they're public again. So the way the modern concentration camps are run is that people are being ganged up on in their own home. Microwave guns, machine guns, and other micro and electromagnetic weapons are placed around their home. These victims are loaded with illegal implants and nanotechnology, and they are being tortured and mutilated to death in their own home remotely, using the fact that frequencies like microwave frequencies pass through the walls of a home without problems. So this is what's being done. I'm in a concentration camp here in Zurich. These are individual concentration camps. So I am being mutilated by Swiss intelligence at the moment. I've also been mutilated by British and German intelligence. So there is no difference between these intelligence agencies, and therefore I do not have any sort of national allegiance or national animosity against any of the nations. All of them are suffering from the same deep capture and the same problems. So right now, I'm being mutilated in a Zurich concentration camp, which is run by Swiss intelligence, and it's authorized by Markus Seiler. So right now, I'm being tortured to death on the direct orders of Markus Seiler. Swiss intelligence knows about my case. I have talked for an hour and a half to a senior officer of the Swiss intelligence agency and the military HQ in Bern. I have tried to warn them, tried to explain to them that running concentration camps on Swiss soil, Switzerland, which is supposed to be neutral, if you run the same concentration camps on Swiss soil that's being run on German and UK and American soil, it means that your neutrality has gone out of the window. When Switzerland loses its neutrality, it means that they lose the biggest asset that they had, and that's the only thing that actually kept them safe. As you probably know, Switzerland is sitting on a lot of gold. It's sitting on a lot of assets that are stored here because of its neutrality from around the world. When Switzerland loses its neutrality, it loses its favored position as a safe haven in Europe. When it's not a safe haven, then very quickly asset withdrawals are going to follow. That is that simple. So when you operate concentration camps, and publicly so you continue mutilating an outspoken person who has got a PhD in high energy physics and who can actually explain what's being done to her. If you do that publicly, what you're actually doing is you're broadcasting to all asset holders who have assets stored in Switzerland that withdrawing their assets now would be a good idea. So what Markus Seiler is doing, he is indirectly screwing the Swiss banks. This is not an effect that will be obvious straight away. This is an effect that will be very obvious when it comes to a crunch point. And that's because when you have large asset holders, they cannot withdraw their money or their assets in a way that is not noticed, depending on how big they are. And therefore, most asset holders, when they make a decision, they either start withdrawing clandestinely or they wait for one big withdrawal when they don't care anymore that it will become public. And what this means is that people earmark their assets for withdrawal in Switzerland. They will not act on them straight away, but they will put mechanisms into place to do the withdrawal as quickly as possible when they make the decision. And because most people are watching the same sort of news reports, the same few channels, and that's a result of node formation and bunching in networks. Because of that, should there come a sign that now is high time, most asset holders, large asset holders, will act at the same time. And what this will mean is that Switzerland is flying along thinking like everything is rosy and all is fine. And at some point, what will happen is that suddenly all large asset holders will just withdraw their money. And I can already predict that this will lead to large-scale problems for Switzerland. So I thought that the military HQ should know that when they are shooting civilians up with military weapons, it has, because we're now in a network society that even the military doesn't quite understand, it has implications for the national security that are larger than they comprehend. As you probably know, the military is not an expert on comprehension. They're an expert on blowing things up and killing people. But, comprehension and planning ahead is not actually their forte. So I have informed both the military of Switzerland and the Swiss intelligence agency that running concentration camps on Swiss soil is a really stupid idea, but they are not listening. So I'm still in a concentration camp, and the way that looks is that my neighbors have electromagnetic machine guns with which they machine gun me at night. They shoot into my home. They have microwave emitters with which my face is being cooked. My face is being shot into. My eyes are being shot into. I also have nanotechnology and implants that have been implanted into me without my knowledge. That is very easy to do and can be done during surgery in hospitals. People can come into your hotel room, anesthetize you in your hotel room and come in at night. So if you stayed at a hotel, this could have happened to you, or they just come into your home. So when the intelligence agencies implant people, you do not notice straight away. They try to stay quiet until until the nanotechnology has established itself in your body, or the implants are, can be read out and have been set up to operate, and then they act. Okay, so this is the background information. What has happened now is that I think I have my colleague Melanie Richan recognized that I have little scars on my forehead, and she has an eye for that because she has seen many victims, and she discovered scars on her own body. And she said also that she has injections under her scalp where the nanotechnology and the implants have been placed. And what happens is that these implants grow nanofibers, and you end up, according to her, with an entire cap under your skin of these interconnected nanotechnology fibers that are connected to little chip nodes and so on. So you can be, you have an entire current network, a circuitry under your skin. That sounds sci-fi and scary, but then again, if you think about it, nerve connections are just that they are biological wiring. And it's some sort of nanotechnology biological wiring that the intelligence agencies are putting into people. And they also load in chips. So they inject chips around your scalp and, and stuff like that. So right now, after I spent months and months having my body shot into and being just tortured and mutilated nonstop, the attacks on me focus on trying to manipulate my brain. So I can feel on some days an incredible current. It feels like you have a current under your skin, and you can tell that it's implants and it's nanotechnology, because suddenly when you put metal shielding around you, it doesn't actually block out the symptoms. So that means that the chips have already been triggered and they are doing their own thing without having to rely on external signals. So that has been happening a lot. They can induce, I have felt an extreme current running across my forehead. They were trying to induce extreme migraines through that. They can also induce dizziness and many other things, so extreme headaches. They can also, what they're trying to do is, like with many victims, control my awake and sleep states. This can also be done with electromagnetic signals. And they have tried to, force anesthetize me, to try to send me to sleep by putting these extreme currents through my eyes. And what you notice is that out of nowhere, you have extreme tiredness, which then goes off as quickly as it came. Okay, so that has been done to me. Also, microwave guns are placed at my neighbors, as I said. So when I'm trying to go outside, I've got a balcony. And when I'm out on the balcony, I am being shot into and microwaved from nearby high rises. So I had just this morning, my throat microwaved quite intensely. It's extremely painful. So Okay, I think I'm back. I have been thrown from the broadcast, so I must be doing something right. I am trying to check in the background. I'm not sure if you guys can still hear me. I'm trying to check the actual comments. So whilst I was trying to get back, I managed to have a quick look. Hang on, where are the comments? Let me just find it right now. So I just very briefly, I would like to also inform people about the upcoming things that are happening. But right now, let me just check the comment section. Oops, it has been. It looks like it has been removed. Happening, but here. Okay, no, here we are. Okay, so I have read your comments. Number one is I am wrong about, this was in German, and it said I'm wrong about using the references to Nazis because the Nazis have been exterminated, or that's not actually true. You can find, maybe I should show you guys. You can find, if you go to YouTube, an actual interview by hang on, it's Christopher Story, who I think since then has been murdered, according to Benjamin Fulford. And if you go to Christopher Story, EU Corruption, Part 1 of 3. Okay, let me share my screen, and then I can educate you guys and have this Nazi thing off the table once and for all. So let me share my screen. So what I was saying a moment ago is, if you go to YouTube and you type Christopher Story, okay, you will get through to an excellent three-part YouTube video called Christopher Story, EU Corruption, Part 1 of 3, and there's Part 2 of 3 and 3 of 3 here. And when you listen to the first video, I think it's just over 10 minutes long, you will find, I think at some point, minute 1.3 or something like that. So after 1.5 minutes, you will find Christopher Story saying that it is the belief that the Nazis have been finished off. And he said that is not true. He said what we did is we personalized the war and we finished off Hitler. And that's correct. And I'm not even sure if they finished off Hitler. I think, the quite credible reports exist about him being smuggled out and then, taken off to Argentina. And that's what I would expect to happen, because other people have been smuggled out using, probably won't be surprised to hear, the Jesuit rat lines. So that's what happened to Hitler. Then what happened to the Nazi scientists is that they also have been smuggled out. And through Project Paperclip, they have been shipped off to the US. And there they flourished. They continued their Nazi experiments, and they expanded them. And MK Ultra and these sort of sick experiments also go back to the Nazi death camp experiments. So it's not true that we finished off the Nazis. The Nazis are alive and well. And when you put the puzzle pieces together and you read, I think it's the book by Anthony Sutton about who funded the Nazis. There are links to Anglo-Saxon banks, which have also in those days been headquartered in Switzerland. And I think there's the historian Sean Ross, who explains that the Second World War was funded by the Swiss, and he connects it to the Templars, and the Templars have their own links to the old cartel, being the Vatican and so on. And it might sound like a terrible conspiracy theory, but the point is that when you have a complex human system set up, that human system will stay in place unless there's some sort of cataclysmic event that stops it. Now, given that there was never any cataclysmic event that stopped the Church or the Vatican, it's still in place. It's a huge network. And once you have a big system, it just grows bigger. Just like a big company will continue growing bigger and bigger. So that's the situation. So this is why we have all these interconnected networks all around the world. And it's not, well, it is a conspiracy. So, but just trying to denigrate people by pointing to a conspiracy theory is not a good idea, simply because, these conspiracies have always existed, and there are systems analysis reasons to explain why they continue existing. So it's much better to think in terms of business plans, actually. So once you have a successful business plan, the business plan will be carried over and carried on by by the conspirators or the collaborators, even if after one person dies. And this is how these systems can, survive individuals. Sorry, my camera has got difficulties correcting for the light levels, so that's what's happening here. If I look a bit overlit, then I'm sorry about that. So you can also see the injuries in my face. That's because I am being shot into non-stop. I'm sorry. I mean, actually, I've got a lot of makeup. Without makeup, I would look even worse. But what this is I think, so number one is I'm being shot into. I've got microwave beams being shot into my face, and you can see pigment changes there. And pigment changes are a telltale sign of microwave weapon attacks. You can also see pigment changes here and here if you look carefully. And that's because I'm being shot into here and here under my eyes. Sometimes, certainly when I'm on the balcony, they seem to shoot from below, and that's why you have the pigment changes here. It's people trying to get into my brain or into my eye socket or heck knows what. But anyway, so this is what you can see. So you are watching live a victim of a concentration camp, an abuse victim. So under that realization, let's go back to the comments. And maybe when you're making comments, you should be aware of who you are commenting to. You have to keep in mind that you are talking to an abuse victim. And would you go up to a rape victim and try to denigrate her? So, for example, Joel Weidenfeld, who is an account that must be owned by the intelligence agencies. He's some sort of, as far as I can tell, probably a guy. I would place him as a young guy, maybe early 20s, based on his language or something like that. But it really sounds like you have some, shithead just talking nonsense. But when you read his comments here, okay, so yes, nonsensical comments. So for example, he says, or the account says, doctor shot in the head is Edward Snow job. Yeah, no different. His NSA bad guys, her Swiss Intel bad guys, both shill, both agents deflecting the real issues. Okay, this like the grammar of this agent account is already, breathtaking. And he says, she got rid of the tin foil. Guess they turned down the beam. No, Joel, they haven't turned down the beam. The tin foil is in my study. I had to, reinforce my study, but I don't have the actual capacity, nor the time, nor the inclination to turn my entire flat into a metal shielded bunker. And I'm now sitting in my dining room. That's why I don't see the tin foil, but it's still there. And by the way, it's not tin foil. I explain to people it's aluminium, and people who use tin foil, given that there's no tin in it, right? People who use the term tin foil specifically are referring to and are using a disinformation term developed by the CIA to discredit the early victims of electromagnetic attacks. So back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when they started using electromagnetic weapons, and they discovered the power it gave them to interfere with people's brains, damage brains, and modify the signals sent in brains through electromagnetic radiation. Of course, they were shooting into the heads of their victims. So the victims very quickly discovered what's being done to them. And then they realized the only way to protect themselves is to shield themselves with metal. If you want to shield your head with metal, you need malleable metal that you can bend. And this sort of aluminium foil is, is ideal for that. It's very cheap. It's, simple baking foil. By the way, I always have to have a roll close to me because my neighbors sometimes shoot into my legs, into my kidney, my ovaries as well, my breasts. So you have to shield yourself nonstop. So, given that is the situation, this is aluminium, and since the 1960s, there's no tin in it. So if you use tin foil, given that this is aluminium foil, you are using the CIA term. So thank you so much, Joe, for reminding me of making this point again. The question is, has your husband been attacked as well, and would he be willing to give a testimony? Yes, my husband has been attacked, but when he was asleep in bed. Yes, I have woken up and I have heard him just really be in a lot of pain. He was really, really suffering. And when I woke up and I realized that he was just, moaning from pain, I put my hand on his head, and I realized that the microwave beam that was aimed at his head was so intense that, it gave me instantaneously joint ache when I reached into the beam. So that is an extremely intense beam. So that's a beam that comes from a nearby neighbor, a neighboring house that I can actually see through the window. But yes, it's true. Unfortunately, he cannot give testimony, and that is something that all victims probably know from their own families. Their families are also brainwashed through subliminal messaging, through exactly the microwave beam. The reason why they were microwave beaming his head is because they were working with his brain. And there are very various ways where you can interact with the brain. You can send speech, and therefore in your sleep, in your dreams, you can be worked on. You can be educated, if you like. So people can repeat the same message over and over and over. And by the time you wake up, your brain has learned. So you wake up and you'll say something that you have been taught at night subconsciously. So this is how they can turn families against you. And in the case of my husband, he cannot give testimony because he wasn't conscious when this was done. And he had quite a lot of, work done on him, which is why he just cannot, like absolutely every single husband or partner of a victim, he cannot accept that this is happening because he had so much work done on him. So he is now just desperately trying to protect himself from the attacks and trying to just, be safe. But he can certainly give testimony about other things where he was conscious. For example, when after the first High Court hearing in London, I was shot up on what must be the orders of Andrew Parker, head of MI5. I was shot to bits until I collapsed in pain in my hotel room straight after the first High Court hearing in London. That was the 19th of May, 2016. And then I was trying to protect myself. I called my a very good friend in a total panic. I also called Peter Mooring, so he can certainly testify to that. Peter Mooring is the person who organized the covert harassment conferences. And I was shot up so badly, I really thought that they're going to kill me then and there, so that the court case can't proceed. And then I managed to protect myself and my head with aluminium that I had on me at the time. But when the attacks calmed down, after a few hours, my husband returned to the hotel room. I got up from the bed to tell him about the attacks, and I was shot to pieces again in front of him. So I literally collapsed in pain in front of him. So he can certainly testify that that happened. He was also with me in the car. It was 3 days after my High Court hearing when I survived an assassination attempt here in Switzerland. And we were traveling through a tunnel at 100 miles per hour. And I was shot in the head so hard, I nearly passed out in the car. But I said to my husband that I was being attacked, and I changed lanes to be out of the beam that was seemed to come from either the car ahead or the car behind me, or I suspect from both, over crossing in my head. And as soon as I got out of the beam, the attack stopped, and I could, regain full consciousness and be fully alert and continue driving the car out of the tunnel. But my husband was in the car, and he can certainly testify to that that happened. So that is just for the record. In the case of my death, you have this video testimony under oath, and investigators can follow up. Okay, somebody says that it's quite interesting about the assets, and the military weapons side of things is a bit daunting. Yes, the asset side is the driving element. It's the business plan. The business plan is always asset stripping, because we're dealing with an organized crime cartel, so they don't produce anything. They just take assets from elsewhere, and they are, that's the only way that they can make money. So that's how it's done. But the asset stripping is underlying everything. And right now, a big asset stripping exercise will be conducted in Europe and the US, which is why this weapon system is being launched here and in the US. Okay, Joe Weidenfeld again, who curiously, as soon as I go online, he's there and is making comments. So this means that, he is an agent who's been tasked with being just online 24/7 and watch for everything that I produce. So it must be an account attached to a shift service of, teenagers probably making stupid comments. But he says, check her physics background, her published papers. You do realize even students publish, you realize no publish, no PhD. Okay, no publish, no PhD. That's like, you know, no woman, no cry. I mean, God, the grammar of this stuff. Anyway, it's hilarious to read the agent communication sometimes. Yes, you can check online for my published papers. As I said, I also published online, I think in the video, Who I Am. I published the certificate that I got from St. John's, that I worked there. You can call St. John's and you can ask them if I worked there, and I have, so you can check that. Also, I worked at CERN. I worked for the Atlas collaboration, so you can find all that. And also, you can call my the team leader of the UK Atlas contingent is Professor Tony Weidberg, also at Oxford. You can ask him too. Professor Weidberg is very often interviewed by the BBC, so he's a public persona, and he was the head of the Atlas group at Oxford. So much about my physics credentials. Okay, question mark, Nazi war crimes committed by Swiss Intel run by Markus Seiler. I know it's surprising. I know it's surprising, but it's true. It's the Nazi International. That is certainly true. Do you have voice to skull? No, I do not. Thank goodness. Frankly, already reading what these agents put in print is bad enough. Having them broadcast into my skull would be terrible. But I did have a trial of voice to skull. So I think when they trial the voice to skull, you first hear a beeping sound or tinnitus. You know, sometimes they, and what this is either the chip that you might have been injected with in your ear. You know, they're testing if it's grown into the nerves and so on, and they can read out also your brain prints. So they can check that you hear what they're sending, I think. But I certainly have heard this sort of tinnitus that's just turned on and then turned off like a beam. You know, there's also microwave hearing, so it could also be a microwave beam. I've also made measurements where you can see electromagnetic pulses being shot into my ear canal quite intensely. That could be to turn on the chip or to, you know, somehow, I think there's also nanotechnology that can be stimulated, the growth of which can be stimulated with electromagnetic energy. And it could be that they're trying to grow even deeper into my ear. Heck knows. Either way, we'll find these devices. Sorry, I'm just being shot into my head now from the other window. But what I did have, that is, I think, voice to skull, is I had a very high definition voice command broadcast into my ear. That was my left ear at the time. And I think I might have mentioned it. So if you hear the same stories again, forgive me, but I have to publicly testify the evidence. So what I did here, because the intelligence agencies amuse themselves with the fact that they don't just put you under surveillance, they put your entire family and friends under surveillance. And they can do that because they have these decentralized networks of stalkers and psychopaths that need to be kept busy. So, you know, all across the country. So this is how they do it. And they watched my husband arrive back in the early morning, come back to our home. And then I was lying in bed sleeping at the time. And I was woken up by an electromagnetic pulse to the head. So I was lying awake. And then at some point I heard loud and clear a command by a man in perfect fluent German saying, "Open the door." So, you know, I should go and open the door. And then I could hear my husband rustling and then, you know, coming through the front door. So that was very loud and clear. I was sleeping under shielding at the time, so I don't think that was a direct electromagnetic beam or, you know, some sort of direct beam microwave hearing fry effect thing. I think I've got a chip in my ear. And they just broadcast, they just, you know, just like you can talk into a mobile phone and someone on the other side of the globe, somebody can hear that. If you have the chip not inside the mobile phone, but inside your ear, you will hear it straight inside your ear. So that's what happened. So I could have voice to skull. I only had a one sentence voice to skull. And then again, they can always do voice to skull when you're asleep at night. So you can be whispered to, you can be talked to through these implants, and they can try to influence you. So that's why they are so incredibly dangerous. Sorry, I can see that the video is sometimes changing color. If this annoys you, I'm very, very sorry. I've got very little control about what the camera does at times. Okay, so to answer your questions, okay, so I'm saying all these things that if you should have experienced the same things, please do not panic. When you suddenly hear voices in your head, it doesn't mean that you're mad. It could be that you're being messed around by the local intelligence agency that seems to be industrializing this bullshit. So, that is what could be happening. If you have a lot of voice to skull and it's crippling your life, then you're probably under a psychological warfare program, and it might be worth your time to keep looking for doctors and make them search for a chip, make them search for surgical incision scars or something inside your ear canal. So I do remember that when I lived I think it was in Munich, when the entire gang stalking nonsense exploded, and I realized I'm living not that far from German intelligence. I remember that I had a lot of, it wasn't even ear infections, it was certain parts of my ear being extremely sore and extremely inflamed. And I didn't know at the time what that was. And I think that was the fact that at night they came in and they probably injected this technology into my ear. So if you have a lot of voice to skull, these people will try to drive you crazy. Do not go crazy. Do not be afraid. Certainly do not listen to their death threats. So 2 of my colleagues have non-stop voice to skull. That's Melanie Richan and Dr. Millicent Black. And Dr. Millicent Black receives non-stop death threats. And so does, I think, Melanie Richan. Do not listen to that bullshit. What you essentially have is a chip in your ear, I suspect. And somewhere on the other side of the line, a bunch of, fucktards for the intelligence agency are just sitting in front of a microphone talking shit. And they're also connecting sometimes AI, so computerized voices, so that even when they go off to have a coffee, you'll be, talked at by some computerized voices, or, that sound incredibly real, and so on and so on. So that's the nonsense that they're doing. So if you have voice to skull, if you're otherwise sane and healthy, I would recommend not going to psychiatrists, because they're hopefully uninformed about military technology. They're probably going to bullshit you. And what your real problem is one to do with intelligence agency crimes. And the other problem you have is a medical problem, which is you have a chip in your ear, I would suspect. So given that the intelligence agency crimes my team and I are trying to solve, we're on the case. If you're not into crime fighting yourself, the best thing you can do is to keep looking for doctors to try to get the chip out. There are ways to operate these chips out. I have heard people have told me that they had chips removed and the voice to skull stopped. So that's what you have to do. You have to find doctors of integrity, doctors with an inquisitive mind, because they will have to look on scans for technology that they haven't met before. But you can also point them to articles about deaf people, for example, learning how to hear again with these implants. So, all this exists. It's not sci-fi. It's already here. Okay. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. I will answer this question, even though the user account has got a rather funny image that looks a bit crazy, which is usually an agent account. It says it here in German. I'm going to read the German and then I'll translate it to English. It says, Nazi ist ein Kurzwort für einen Anhänger des Nationalsozialismus und wird umgangssprachlich zumeist abwertend gebraucht. Was verstehst du unter einem Nazi? Was ist deine Definition? So it's in English, it means Nazi is an abbreviation for a follower of National Socialism. And in colloquial speech, it's usually used in a deprecatory, derogatory fashion. What do you understand under the term Nazi? What is your definition? And I think that's a very, very good point. And that's because National Socialism, yes, National Socialism as it was first ignited was the idea, that you have social projects and you try to look out for the people inside your country. And it came after the horrific depression and the financial collapse of the Reichsmark in Germany, when a lot of people were starving, they were unemployed. And this idea, which is a good idea, and I do subscribe to, and now be careful what I subscribe to. I subscribe to looking out for and being social towards the people within a jurisdiction, within a nation, right? Because they have a lot of things in common. They should look out for each other. And I am certainly in favor of social projects. And this is, for example, why Hitler's building projects for the Autobahn were hugely popular, because suddenly a lot of money, which they didn't know was coming from the defense industry, but a lot of money was being pumped into the building projects, and through the salaries managed to lift extremely poor people out of utter poverty and starvation. So, of course, the people who only saw the social projects said, yay, that's a great thing. Hitler is such a great guy. And it's true, the social projects were great. What wasn't so great is that the money was coming from the weapons industry, and the Autobahn were not built because everybody thought, oh, wouldn't it be really nice if all the Germans could drive really quickly into their holidays on the Autobahn? No, the reason why the Autobahns were funded is because the weapon industry thought, okay, we need a big war to clear out our weapons cache and make an awful lot of money. And if you want to transport troops, and if you want to have a really spectacular war in Europe, then you need the Autobahn. And that's the way round it actually was. And then the money seems to have come from Switzerland. It seems to have been, put up by the Anglo-Saxon banks, connected to the Swiss banks in Switzerland, yada, yada, yada. And you had the Second World War. So my definition of what I mean by a Nazi is what is, because I have to appeal to the, to the public, I have to use the word Nazi in the way that's understood publicly. And that is the later phase where the nation that was bought in with the social projects of, the national social projects, was then used for the war machinery and was turned into a huge group of weaponized morons, and then let loose on Poland and all adjacent countries. And they were turned into this marauding horde of absolute psychopathic murdering imbeciles. So when I'm using the word Nazi, I'm referring to the later stages of psychopathic murdering imbeciles who had Nazi doctors mutilating to death, by the way, Germans. Yes. So, that's the funny thing, because the cartel always uses Germans to mutilate Germans and the British to mutilate British, and so on and so on. So I'm referring to that term. I'm referring to the colloquially used term Nazi as in referring to murderous psychopaths that want world domination sort of thing and do Nazi experiments and that sort of stuff. Now, if you're saying that, there are a lot of followers, well, people said it to me in the past, there are a lot of followers of National Socialism in Germany, I understand what they mean, because they want to go back to the original idea and they want to say, hang on, this globalist collective isn't a good idea. We should try to compartmentalize back down into countries. It's a way of having firewalls if you have borders. You try to contain your system and try to operate within that system, but have firewalls protecting yourself against the shit that might be going on elsewhere. So as a computer, somebody who's a computer programmer, I certainly think that firewalls are a good thing. That sort of modularization is a good thing. We know that from computer programs. You don't want a virus to just infect your whole system. If you have a global system, any sort of psychopathy, which is you can think about it as a virus, if that infects your systems and you have a global system, you're in deep shit globally. If you have individual countries with firewalls, then it's much more contained. Having a psychopathic takeover in just Germany is better than having it in the entire EU. So that's to answer your question. It's quite deep, actually, which is why I took the time to answer it. So, do not take away that, oh, I'm in favor of National Socialism as in the murdering psychopathic part. But also don't take it that I don't understand the subtleties, and that I don't understand how people who were genuine and were genuinely looking for hope, that who were starving and who wanted a job and who wanted respect and who wanted to be recognized. I also understand that this is how they were bought, but their intentions were totally genuine. As a systems analyst, I also know that when a system takeover happens, the people that are used to ignite something are not necessarily the people who will be around at the later stages. So Hitler was used as a figurehead to ignite it and was there at a later stage, but that's because he was a figurehead. Alone he couldn't have pulled it off across the whole of Germany. So the truth is that in all local communities, they bought people with the idea of solving their problems, solving the starvation and the unemployment if they sign up to National Socialism. And then their work effort was morphed into something else through infiltration and the usual intelligence agency methods. But you also probably remember that the Gestapo, the Geheime Staatspolizei, the secret state police, was instrumental in all of this. And there's a second element, which is the police. The police was also instrumental in the Nazi takeover. And the way it was done is that the police was corrupted. So corrupt, idiotic, and degenerate police officers were actively promoted up. Good police officers were sacked or, mobbed out of their jobs or killed. And then, a good idea was morphed into this murderous machine through infiltration and through the corruption and deep capture of the systems. But the two elements that the cartel had to use were the intelligence agencies and the police. These were the levers of power, which is why the police turned into this, this brutal horde, and the Gestapo was these murdering, roving psychopaths. And then you had the SS and the Waffen-SS, and gosh, but they were all these sort of secret service and police type of things. And the word secrecy, or the fact of secrecy, always leads to a criminal takeover. And that's because if something is secret, if it gets captured by criminals, because of the secrecy, a system cannot recover. Okay? And secret systems are favored by criminals because the secrecy allows them to commit crimes. And it is for this reason that as soon as you have a secret system, you have a deep capture machine. And it is also for this reason that in most world wars and most horrific crimes, the secret services were used to pull it off. Okay, so what I'm saying is that in the 21st century, we mustn't have any sort of secret systems anymore. If you want to truly defend national security, it should be well, somebody actually pointed me to this term. It should be open source intelligence. Okay, and that means that anybody can analyze it, and anybody can contribute, and anybody can use this information. And at first, if you're coming from the old paradigm, it seems nonsensical, because how can you protect your national security if you make all your weaknesses public? And the people who think that's impossible, they don't understand complex systems. Now, computer programmers already have to deal with complex systems. So in the computer programming world, it's already well known that if you want to have a resilient system, it has to be a public system. It has to be transparent. It has to be open source. And if you have some sort of hacks or weaknesses, if you really want to have security patches very quickly, or if you even want to spot your security issues, you have to use open source, because then you pull the expertise of absolutely everybody, not just a tiny group of people who actually work for you inside your company. You can pull everybody, the experts all around, people who might just have heard about the issue, or might have some sort of expertise that they would like to, use. So, for example, I would have to dig around a bit, but if you follow the tweets of Kim.com, right, who's a computer programmer who's running a computer company, he was saying that, I think he was talking about mega uploads. So if I get the details wrong, please correct me. Don't rip my head off. Just look up his tweets and look at what he said. But if I remember correctly, he was saying that mega upload, I think he might have sold it, and the CEO who taken it over turned it from open source back into a closed company. And he said that he totally disagreed with that. And he said, as a CEO, as a company head, he cannot ensure the integrity, or he can't watch out for every single one of his employees, right? So the only way to make his system safe is to make them open source, so that external people who spot something wrong with his systems can let him know. And he was saying that the only way to have safe computer systems with integrity is to make them open source. He said closed systems, you cannot guarantee that they are safe and that are resilient. So that is from the horse's mouth, if you like, from an actual expert who has built up his computer company, who knows an awful lot about resilient systems and security. So in the computing world, he says open source is the only way to go. So now, if we transfer this back to our complex human systems, and we're talking about national security, the very same structure or mathematical processes apply, right? Again, you can have an intelligence agency or military intelligence that's tasked with, in an ideal world, is tasked with keeping your system secure, as opposed to being tasked with running child trafficking and drug running. But anyway, so in an ideal world, you have the military intelligence being tasked with ensuring national security, but it's a very small group of people, right? And the more secrecy or the more, what's it called? Just sort of classification you need, the smaller the group of people who've got top security clearances and top, whatever it's called, top secret clearances and blah, blah, blah. So you're dealing with a very, very small group of people. Now, this group of people doesn't have the actual work time, even if they were all brilliant, to at all times keep an eye on all the complex systems downstream. Okay, so it's impossible. It's mathematically impossible for a small group of people with high top security clearances to actually ensure that you have system security. It's impossible. And given that these people are tasked with an impossible task, they will not do it. Instead, they'll think, okay, well, we can't do our job anyway, so let's just take our systems and make money on the side. And eventually they'll end up, running child trafficking rings and stuff like that. So this is how it comes about, even if you started off with a group of people who have maximum integrity, deep capture and so on. But even if you don't start off with people with top, high integrity, it will get bad even quicker. So this is it. This is the big picture. Are there any other good questions to answer? Also Menschen, die ihrer Nation sozial eingestellt sind, greifen dich mit Laserwaffen an. No, that's not what I said. So the question was, so you're saying that people who are socially, socially disposed towards their nations are attacking you with laser weapons. No, that's not what I said. I said that the intelligence agencies are attacking you with laser weapons. That's a big difference. And the Gestapo wasn't that social towards the Germans, if you remember, right? The Securitate, the secret service police in Romania, was not that social towards the Romanians. And MI5 is not that social towards the British, and the BND is not social at all towards the Germans. So what I'm saying is that in Germany, I was attacked by the BND. In Britain, I was attacked by MI5. And here in Switzerland, I'm attacked by the NDB, right? These people are professional con artists, saboteurs, and serial killers. I'm saying that I'm being attacked by laser weapons by these people. Okay, so that's the big difference. Okay, so Joe Weidenfeld says, check into her background and try and get how she possibly doesn't know or credit Sean Ross, Swiss activist who's been jailed for anti-police YouTube videos. She's a clown. I'm not a clown, Joel. I am a victim, okay? And I am mentioning Sean Ross, I think, in every second video. If I don't, I will, please put it in the comments, because Sean Ross is one of the very, very important people. He analyzed the symbolism. He did a lot of historical research and analyzed the importance of the old Templar networks, because networks never really just puff into thin air. They just grow bigger and bigger. So, and he also published the Nazi links. And also what I know about Sean Ross is that the Swiss tried to section him. They locked him into some psychiatric institution in Bern, where, if I'm informed correctly, these Nazis were trying to kill him. And I think they tried to kill him if I remember correctly, and if this is actually true, so check with Sean Ross. I think he said that they were reducing the oxygen in his cell. And if you have a very low oxygen environment, apparently it induces suicidal thoughts. So they were trying to make him suicidal by withdrawing his oxygen, but he survived, he cottoned onto that, and he pulled through. So that's what I know about Sean Ross. And I think he also uploaded a video of gang stalkers next to his home in Switzerland, where they were trying to intimidate him and his family. So I do know about Sean Ross, and I respect the guy an awful lot. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay, then there's a comment saying there's no Nazi war, but just only Zionist. Oh yes, the spelling mistakes are usually agents, cartel signaling. So Zionist, which probably is meant to be Zionist, war crime against humanity. Okay, so now let's tackle the issue with the Zionists. So you can talk about the Zionists and you can say, oh yes, but all these banks are owned by Jewish people and yada, 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 and so on and so on. And then I will say you only see part of the picture, because there are also the Nazi networks. So as I said, with Nazi, I'm referring to the psychopathic murdering people. And yes, the Zionists exist. Yes, it's a powerful network. The old Nazi networks exist, and it's very powerful. But it's much bigger than that, which is, I think, the common denominator, psychopathy. Okay, Machiavellianism, and this dark triad of traits, narcissism and so on, megalomania. So these sort of mental disorders are the common denominator. And then people will group into these networks, and it could be the Freemasons, it could be the Zionists, it could be the Nazi collectives, the old Nazi collectives, it could be Skull and Bones, it could be the Trilateral Commission, or it could be the Illuminati, or it could be the Japanese mafia, or it could be the Chinese mafia. So the actual structure, and this is why I do not want to focus on the Zionists. It's not because, I think one shouldn't focus on it. And it's not because I think, we have to focus on the Nazis as opposed to the Zionists. No, the Zionists do play into it. And I think a lot of the Zionists funded the Nazis. Okay, so it's all interconnected. I'm using the term Nazi because everybody immediately understands the war crimes of the Nazis, the concentration camps, and has it in front of their mental eye. When you refer to Zionists, what people have in their mind is, Israel and Palestine and the Jews and the Holocaust, and is it real, is it not? And it's very, very complicated, right? And that's why I do not refer to Zionists. It's because I'm using Nazi as a moniker for communication to refer to Nazi crimes. But yes, the Zionists play into it. Yes, they're a very powerful network, and they are, ironically, interconnected into all the other networks. So I think it's better to think about the network structure itself as opposed to one particular label. For example, the Freemasons are also very powerful, but they're much more numerous than the Zionists. Okay, so you have the Royal Arch Freemasons and all that stuff. And I think the best way to think about it is it doesn't matter what name they give themselves. It doesn't matter if they call themselves Scientologists, or if they call themselves the Catholic Church, or Jesuits, or Zionists, or Freemasons, or Illuminati, or Japanese, Yakuza, or whatever they're called. So, this is, the Italian mafia. These are networks, and a lot of these networks are actually interconnected. Okay, I think all the networks I just mentioned are interconnected into one big conglomerate. Okay, so yes, there's a Zionist war, yes, there's a Nazi war, and yes, crimes against humanity are being committed. But what we have to do is put all of these pieces together and say what is actually happening is that there's a war going on by the psychopaths and the corrupts and the degenerates on the normal people. Okay. Okay, the real Nazis are Zionists. Okay, well, I think the top Nazis are Zionists and the top Zionists are Nazis. I think they're all interconnected. Okay. Okay, so then there's just nonsense and agent communication here in the chat. Let's see. I think there are some useful questions coming further down. Okay. Does the directed energy to head feel like an extreme beam of heat that is almost unbearable in pain? Well, I think a directed energy shot to the head can feel like many things. You can have headaches, you can have skin burning, it can be unbearable pain, it can also be blinding your eye, it can also make you go to sleep instantaneously, it can make you vomit instantaneously, it can do a huge number of things. The CIA uses hoods, white noise, and sleep deprivation to torture suspects. Yes, and when they're using electromagnetic weapons, they also try to use sleep deprivation. So, for example, my colleague, Dr. Millicent Black, who is being assaulted by this psychopath from the Air Force, on authorization of the Air Force, as it seems, she is being kept up most nights. So most nights she is emailing me, which at a time that must be like 4 a.m. for her, and it's something like 9 o'clock in the morning for me. She's working nonstop because she's being sleep deprived by these psychopaths in the Air Force. Okay, then check out microwave hearing effect done by radar, no implant needed. Yes, that's true. I think it's also called the microwave hearing effect is called the Fry effect with EY. So Fry with EY. And yes, you can do it by, electromagnetic pulses, but if you have a direct beam you would need, I would say, a direct beam to have high definition audio. So when you're under shielding like I was, I think it's using an implant. And we found a lot of people with implants in them. Psychic driving was a psychiatric procedure of the 1950s and 60s in which patients were subjected to a continuously repeated audio message on a looped tape to alter their behavior. Yes, and I think that is being done with voice to skull. So people report hearing repeated death threats, repeated homophobic comments and racial slurs and stuff like that. And I think that tells us that the intelligence agencies are using exactly the old method. So if this is what you're hearing in your ear, please check for chips in your ear. Okay, there's also mention of inner ear bone conduction and vibration. Yes, I think that can be done as well. However, what I heard was really high def, so I'm not sure if you can hear, if you can use bone conduction to make it really just so perfectly clear. Maybe you can, but it really sounded like, I've just got the chip and someone talked to me in my, like I was hearing a mobile phone. Someone says I was in a coma a few months, then woke up paralyzed for 18 months. So Guillain-Barré syndrome from a flu shot. I think hospital used me as a guinea pig for experiments. Yes, hospitals do use people as guinea pigs. Okay, someone says, this all sounds crazy, I'm sure, to most people, but the real world is a nightmare and the truth is hidden from the brainwashed masses buried in phones and hypnotized by TV. I think that's totally correct. Eugenics is better than Nazi. So yes, it's a eugenics program. That's what we are on. That's true. In America, there's a magazine called Eugenics, but now they switched the name to Smithsonian. Okay, if you know the history, that's really funny. Okay, Dr. Colin Ross has done some good work on the Nazi doctors and mind control, etc. Yes, I think it might be worth your time having a look at that. Okay, and then it says tinfoil is membrane thin. What protection can it possibly provide? Well, for high frequencies, it provides 100% reflection. So if you watch my video called Audible Invisible Shots, you can see how a shot is deflected and it puts a dent into aluminium, but it's not hitting me. because it bounces back. So just like a layer of silver can reflect light, which is why most mirrors have a silver back. One layer of silver is enough. Okay. Yes, and then the question is, but how can MI5, etc., blackmail people if it's all open source? Exactly, they can't. They can't anymore, and this is why we're going to turn MI5 open source, and also the German and Swiss intelligence. That's the way to go. So if you want to blackmail people, you have a secret service, but if you want to really, actually help people, you would have to do it open source, and therefore it follows that intelligence has to be open source. Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading your comments. So, closed secret information creates a power differential. Yes, that's true. And a power differential is if you're thinking in terms of systems and physics, power differential is a very nice term, actually. Okay. In proportion, that's a great quote from George Washington in his farewell address from September 19, 1796. Okay, this is just years after the French Revolution, right? And to put it into context, and he said, in proportion as the structure of a government gives force to public opinion, it is essential that public opinion should be enlightened. That is so true. In other words, if you have weaponized morons, you can't give force to their so-called opinions, because then it will be just nonsense. The question is, why, it's in German, why are all secret services attacking you with weapons and shooting you in the head? What's so special about you? Well, I think at first sight, there's nothing special about me. Like, there's nothing special about thousands of other victims. I think the intelligence agencies are picking people randomly. When you analyze a bit closer, you realize that it's not that random after all. The victims, I believe, have been selected based on large database analysis, and they're going for the people of highest integrity in society. I think I'm being attacked because I have high integrity. I'm still fairly articulate, and they want to get rid of me. So they want to have a society of easily corruptible people, no integrity, ideally gibbering morons who spend a lot of money on nonsense. And I don't fall into that category. I think that's why I'm attacked. Simple power control eugenics. I think that's exactly what we're dealing with. Okay, so Nazi Germany's racially based social policies that placed the biological improvement of the Aryan race or Germanic Übermenschen master race through eugenics at the center of Nazi ideology. Yes, I think that goes to the heart, and you know what, that goes to the heart of what the Nazis were trying to do, and this brainwash, this eugenics brainwash, is also appearing now again. So there are reports of heads of military intelligence in Britain who are subscribing to a eugenics program, to eugenics ideology. It's the same stuff all over. And it's important to realize that the eugenics component appeals to psychopaths very strongly. And that's because psychopaths consider everybody else to be as good as objects, but they themselves to be special. So, if you have a philosophy or an ideology that's based on eugenics, on the removing the objects and leaving the Übermenschen or the super psychopaths, then you will find, a lot of, applause from them. Okay. The Zionists are the Freemasons. Yes, as I explained, all these networks are connected. And then there's an account saying Darwin 999. Why do they attacking you? Why are they attacking you, Darwin 999? And also your profile seems to have the all-seeing eye, which is cartel signaling. And there's also something about the 999. Maybe that it's an inverted 666. Okay, I don't have to answer that. What TIs call tinnitus, or the hiss, is basically white noise. Oh, so okay, so you're saying that the CIA is known to torture people with white noise, and therefore the tinnitus is also this white noise torture. I think that's a very good point. I've also heard sometimes a tone. So a tone is broadcast into your ear. So yes, I think it's all about the Zersetzung, about the disintegration of people. Okay, so I think I've answered most of the questions. When you call it white noise, then you can look how it is used in torture, plus to hide subliminal messages. Yes, very good point. So let's call it white noise. Let's call it white noise. So they're broadcasting white noise. The tinnitus that you're hearing is most likely the broadcast of white noise, and you should have to be careful because they can hide it. They can use it to hide subliminal messages. Very, very good point. Thank you for my education. Why do you not arrange someone which stalks, someone who stalks, Darwin 999, someone who stalks. So someone who stalks the stalker around you and record them. And it's the stalkers, it's plural, Darwin 999. So that's because I don't have the resources. You know, I'm sometimes photographing the stalkers myself, but I don't have the resources to do that. Okay, have you ever had the sensation that part of your brain was being shook, isn't it? Being shaken, or intensely vibrated? If so, what do you think the best protection would be? I think it's very hard to, I think you might use silicone or cold packs. The gel should be dampening vibrations if vibrations are used on you. If it's electromagnetic, then metal shielding, so copper and aluminium works quite well. And that is the short-term best protection that you might use. The long-term best protection is to help me shut down the intelligence agencies. Okay, then someone says, I told my family about this when I was able to, but they thought I was nuts. Okay, that's a common thing, but now we are also working to inform the families. So people shouldn't think that you're nuts for a very, very long time. Okay, I think I've gone through most of the, oh, someone sent a link to Annie Maschen, I think. Annie Maschen is important to listen to. So she was the, if you look at the chat, okay, the video that was sent, people can maybe look it up in the chat. So Annie Maschen was the girlfriend of David Schuyler, the MI5 or MI6 whistleblowers. And the reason why they are important is because when they blew the whistle, sorry, oh gosh, that's the wrong site. I was trying to look up the YouTube video. So the reason why the two whistleblowers are important is because when they blew the whistle, oh, can you hear the beeping? That's my Geiger counter setting off an alarm. I should also report that the Geiger counter that I'm using is, you know, setting off an alarm, I think every couple of minutes sometimes. So I started being attacked with particle beams, with gamma radiation, and with particle beams, I think. So just this morning, I recorded, I think, 1.6. It was still showing 1.6 microsievert when I went back to my Geiger counter. What's normal around where I am is 0.2, something like that. So 0.1, 0.2. So there we are. So click on the link that someone posted about Annie Maschen. This is a video where it says Annie Maschen, former MI5 agent, talks about false flag operations, 9/11, London and Madrid. Very, very important. So another important thing to realize about the two whistleblowers is, first of all, their relationship was broken up through the terror campaign that they were put through, the total Nazi terror campaign by MI6. Also, I think, if I remember correctly, Annie Maschen came down with a form of meningitis, it was called. She was hospitalized in Paris, and the doctors told her that it's a very rare form of meningitis that they haven't seen in Paris or anywhere, you know, in France. And I have the suspicion, I mean, maybe there were medical tests that actually proved meningitis, but meningitis at its core is brain inflammation, which can be caused by electromagnetic weapons. So given that I think this happened in the 1990s, and that's when they were taking off with the electromagnetic weapons, I would almost suspect that Annie Maschen had her brain cooked with electromagnetic weapons. I suspect. Okay, so that's why. And also I would listen. I think it's very important to listen to what both have to say, Annie Maschen and David Schuyler, actually. So these people need to be, brought out from, they're not in hiding, but they need to be put into the public's eye again, because they both have very, very, very important things to talk about, as have all intelligence agency whistleblowers, actually. And they need to help us what the fuck's going on. They need to tell us, and they need to help us have this thing shut down. Okay, so this is the report for today. I'm just going to scan for, these were excellent comments, actually. Okay. Oh, there are good questions. Actually, there's a really good question coming from Joel Weidenfeld. So as a CERN employee, as a physicist, how do you not analyze the frequencies used against you? It should be child play, and it is the value of having you as a target to the population at large. Well, so first of all, I was never a CERN employee. I was a physicist at CERN, but I was an employee of the University of Oxford. That was my home institute, just to clarify. But I am a physicist. I try to analyze the frequencies. Yesterday, I had an expert come to my home, but he was explaining, he was showing me how to analyze frequencies and how to, what certain frequencies meant and so on. We found air traffic control frequencies in my home and many, many other things. But the issue is that he had very expensive specialized equipment. So he had one device that was, I think, originally something like 15,000 euros. And then, even if you buy it used, it's something like 8,000 euros. So that's how much people would spend on a car. And that's just one measuring device. Then comes the antenna, which is usually about 1,000 on top at least. He had another measuring device that was something like 1,500, and again an antenna worth 500. So he came to my home with equipment that in total I think would be something like 25,000, 30 euros. And given that that's a yearly salary for somebody, I can't actually afford buying all this equipment, and that's what I would need to do professional frequency analysis in the times when I'm being attacked. It's actually extremely, extremely hard to do this. So he helped me try to set up a sort of protocol with which I'm trying to analyze frequencies, but it's very, very hard. And when you're finished analyzing frequencies, you have to learn about implants, about neurology, neuroweapons, nanotechnology. It's a bit too much, right? So most victims cannot do that. So the best way we have is to actually go straight to court cases and explain to judges what is happening, and then a judge can order an investigation, and the courts have the power to pay for experts, and that's what they should. Private people should not be asked to spend thousands and thousands to figure out, to do the work that the police should be doing, and the FBI should be doing, and Interpol and Europol should be doing. So private people should not be required to do that. Okay. Okay, hang on. There are some good questions, so maybe I should just finish them off. They don't want to get rid of you. They just want to advertise off of you. Well, okay, but that's a bad strategy, because in a couple of months, we already honed in on the heads of the intelligence agencies and the organized crime cartel that is using the banks and public institutions like the UN and so on. So they can advertise their demise of me. I think that's what they're doing. Okay. There are agent profiles that try to use triggers pre-programmed in individuals to elicit some kind of negative weaponized response. Yes, I think that is the that was the old tricks in Monarch programming and MK Ultra, and then also psychological warfare. And the way to beat that is to reprogram yourself. So if you discover a negative trigger, reprogram it with an empowering trigger. So for example, if they are attacking you and want to get you down, reprogram it that every single time you're being shot into with a microwave weapon, you think, oh yes, I forgot, I have to fight the criminals. Now let's, you know, do something to actually fight them, and that's how to defeat them. Okay, someone's suggesting window screens. Well, it depends what material they are made of. Okay, so actually, here's a suggestion to search for a quote. There just won't be room for people who won't go along. We can't have such people. So such people would be taken to special places and disposed of humanely. People will just disappear. US 1969. I think that is a very, very good quote to search. I don't actually know who said that, so I'm going to do the search myself as suggested, and you should do too. So that's exactly, if you think about the FEMA camps and all these places, but also hospitals are being used oh yes. Oh, very good, very good. And this also, I think the first result that comes up is Henry Makov. I hope I pronounced his surname correctly, who has a wealth of information on his site. So thank you very much for the link. Okay, and then another suggestion is, if you want to understand targeting, you need to check out Dr. Persinger, especially on his theories and God helmet. So the God helmet is, you know, this kind of like brain EEG helmet with which they can take over a person completely. Is it possible we who see the most chemtrails are being hit with nanoparticles that are then absorbed and activated? I think we get the nanoparticles, then they use Gwentowers and HARP to activate. I think, yes, I think that's the plan. I think as far as I can see, that is the plan, something along those lines. So there are nanoparticles in the chemtrails. They are being absorbed and they can be activated. Yes, 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 all true. The question is, how are we going to stop them? So why don't you work for them? Asks Year of the Rooster, Year of the Cock, MI5, etc. That's because they're a bunch of organized criminals, you know, and I don't work for criminals. That's why. Would it be possible to record the noises that you hear? Well, I don't have voice to skull, so I can't really experiment around. But people who have voice to skull, some of them try to record it, and I think it is possible. I think there are people who know how to record them, so you should dig around. And if you have, you know, an experiment or good links, send them to me. And we are about to put together actual information on, you know, how the targeting is done, etc. Okay, so this is answering all your questions. I have to go and do some work, what I'm going to do is I will be updating you, I think daily as far as I can, about the attacks against me. Also, my hip is being attacked, so I'm being mutilated right now. I think they put, so when they attack joints, they can use microwave beams, but they also implant them with chips and then just set off the chips. So that's, I think, what's being done to victims. Okay, final question. What is a good email for you? It's my email is contact@stop007.org. So you can contact me there. But keep in mind that right now I'm really, really busy and I'm inundated, absolutely inundated with stuff, with good information. So if you've good information, send it to me. If I don't reply immediately, it's because I'm inundated, but I will get onto the good information you've sent me. So nothing gets lost in my email inbox, and I'll read it eventually. I've got some things to prepare to help victims, so I can't reply to all email comments. But anyway, so on Sunday there will be an announcement that was planned for weeks and weeks ago. There will be more projects to help victims, and I ask you to support me. Meanwhile, next Thursday there's again the Techno Crime Fighters Forum in English, and on Fridays there's the Techno Kriminalermittler. And given that today is a Friday, tonight there will be again another episode for all the German speakers, the Technokriminal Ermittler with Melanie Richan and myself. So thank you for listening, and bye for now.